On behalf of the entire Italian ALS patient community, I would like to welcome you to this milestone meeting, organized and paid for by patients like me and their families, who believe strongly in the power of scientific research. My name is Julius Newman. I am 60 years old. The last 10 years passed in the unwelcomed company of this brutal disease. I am happily married, and we have 2 beautiful daughters. I am a biomedical engineer with an MBA, and I have studied and worked in Italy, the United States, Portugal, France, and Kenya. When I was asked to join this team, I accepted with enthusiasm, wanting to contribute to the eradication of ALS. I cannot move or speak, I cannot eat or drink, and I do not breathe independently. I'm alive thanks to machines and my ALS clinic, the Nemo Clinic in Milano. I wish I could be in this meeting, but it is logistically difficult for me to get out. I am with you in spirit. Let me give you a patient's point of view on the current therapeutic situation in ALS. 143 years have passed since the French neurologist, Jean-Martin Charcot, identified and described ALS in 1874. To date, 2 therapies are available. Riluzole, available since 1995, would increase life expectancy by 2 to 3 months, only for patients at the onset of the disease. 22 years after the availability of riluzole, edaravone is now available. This drug has proved effective in moderately slowing the progression of ALS in a small subgroup of patients at the onset of the disease. 2 drugs that are not really exciting. If we consider that in the last 50 years more than 50 trials, and in the last decade 18 drugs, have failed to significantly change the course of the disease, ALS sufferers have only one word to describe the therapeutic situation: catastrophic. Often, even where there is an ongoing trial, most patients cannot attend because pharmacological trials are reserved for patients at the onset of the disease. So an ALS sufferer, with a 2 to 3 year life expectancy, will be able to take part in one trial, if he is lucky. The main reasons, we are told, for the lack of effective therapies are, the complexity of the disease and the fact that the causes of ALS are not known, the chronic lack of funds, and the limited number of patients, which does not justify the investment of big pharma. These are all good reasons, but, when repeated continuously, become excuses. I wonder if they are not used to cover the inefficiencies of a research system that has produced only 2 ineffective therapies in 143 years. For years, for example, there is a need to identify biomarkers. To date, there is no consensus among the scientific community about which biomarkers to use and whether the biomarkers identified are valid. Without the push of private industry, I have the feeling that we are missing a sense of urgency. In a nutshell, understand the ALS emergency to act promptly and produce effective therapies quickly. Yet indications of an ALS emergency exist. A recent study points to a 32% increase in the number of patients by 2040. It can be argued that research must advance with its own speed that cannot be dictated by external factors. Fine, but at the same time many innovations and discoveries took place when the researcher had a well-defined timeline. The search for the ultimate cause for ALS is a bit like hunting for the Holy Grail, a noble and important activity, but it might not lead to any results. The search for effective therapies must continue even if we do not know the causes of ALS. Take multiple sclerosis. There are various therapies even though the cause of demyelization of the nerves is unknown. In addition to giving the patient a better quality of life, these therapies increase the life expectancy of a multiple sclerosis patient. The number of new MS patients is similar to the number of new ALS patients, but the prevalence of multiple sclerosis patients is much higher. An important prevalence creates a market that attracts big pharma. In private industry, when a solution does not exist or the funds are scarce, they collaborate. In recent years, the identification of new genes responsible for ALS has increased considerably. This is due, in part, to the collaboration between various research institutes that make their resources available with a clear and shared objective. The collaborative model should be the norm and not the exception. Why don't we use this model to identify a set of biomarkers or to identify pathological pathways that may lead to a therapy? These are only my opinions and certainly many of you will find them incorrect, incomplete, and unfounded. I'm not a doctor or a researcher, I'm just a patient with 10 years of ALS on his shoulders. As a patient, I see the results of the research and I know there are problems. The patient community is very skeptical of their researchers and neurologists. It's not just the patients to be skeptical but also their family and friends. Of the 200,000 patients worldwide, we can safely say that there are 1 million people close to ALS who have a negative attitude towards research and the researchers. We have lost a very important basin of advocacy and fundraising. Too many trials have failed, too many initiatives disappeared without giving any kind of results. Too many studies have not been followed through. I firmly believe in research and the ability of researchers. The research community, and you in this room, have the keys to develop effective therapies quickly. Much will pass through increased collaboration between research groups and between research and private industry. But without transparent communication there is no collaboration. We need to improve communication between doctor and patient, research groups, research and industry, associations and patients, and the patients themselves. There will be no cure working in isolated compartments. I can assure you that when you come up with a proposal for a therapy, we, the patients and their families in this team, will find the funds necessary to bring this therapy to the patients. It is in everybody's best interest. Have a great and productive meeting and, once again, thank you for attending.